I'll let it go for the night. That would be the best, that would be for me.
When was the last time did something for the first time? 'Cause I need a good night to last for a lifetime. Don't need a reason to dive in my deep end. Something to believe in. Found out on the weekend.
Hey, hey, yeah, yeah.
This is The Weekly Prophet, hosted by Jack Hayes.
How much of the illegal side of the stuff in Panama?
Yeah.
How much can I ask you into that? How much would you prefer we stay away from like
No,
that?
you can talk about it.
Okay, I just wanted to like talk. I didn't want to.
No, I'm good. Relatively nothing to hide.
But this is the Weekly Prophet, brought to you by Prophet Jack Enterprises, and I am so blessed to be sitting here today with Hatton Smith. Hatton is not only the first human I've ever met that free falls off mountains in his free time, but he's also the founder of Campesino Rum, a globally recognized, award-winning, sugar-free spirit brand. Hatton, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Feeling good.
Feeling good?
Yeah.
On your, we were just hearing you're currently moved out of your last place of living, and you've been road tripping it for how long?
I mean, so I moved out in, I guess like September, and I was over in Europe,
Cool.
competing, and then moved back to the state, or I guess just returned back to the States at the end of October, and just been kind of being a road dog ever since.
That's awesome. So I think, and this is a good point to make, because obviously you're going to be tagged in everything for the next couple months of the clips and whatnot. But the story when I was doing the research for this, it stood out to me. I saw kind of your Instagram does a good job at like telling the story behind your brand, and I really got a sense that like you're the spirit of this rum brand, and like so I do want to get into how all that came together. But one of your Instagram posts that stood out to me was when you talked about, I guess it was the end of the trip, and you're like 70 days, 36 bottles, fish hooks, cleaning dirty paper plates.
Yeah.
Like, can you talk? Who were you? And then I saw how you connected with the marketing side of things, and you brought the idea to life. You told your story, and they were like, right? Who were you before that trip? Who was Hatton pre-Panama was when that all kind of started, you said?
Yeah.
Most involvement?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the paper plates thing you're actually referring to is COVID.
Okay.
So I had a whole crazy COVID experience, as I'm sure everybody else did. But what you really asked is like pre-Panama.
Pre-Panama.
And
yeah.
I think I was someone who just wanted to do something, but like didn't know how to do it. Like I had a lot of probably like internal, like almost like rage that I really wanted to get out. Like I really wanted to create, but just didn't know how, and was trying different things. And I really hate being told what to do. Like I really. Like I just that's just not my personality, and I don't like being stuck in one place, or like stuck inside, or stuck in an office, or stuck behind a computer, or things like that. And so going down to Central America and having a whole like life experience of being off the grid for such a long time, and like being so disconnected was something that I felt like was inside of me that just had to get out. And so before doing that, I was probably a bit frustrated.
A bit frustrated. And what was the build up to that? So if you don't mind, like how old were you when you took the trip to Panama?
So the first time I went, so I've been in and out of Panama since I was a little bit younger, but the first time I went like truly by myself, I was 19, and it was really only for like about 3 months. And that's the first time I started living on this off-the-grid farm. And then I was kind of in and out, doing the cold college thing. And then when I got out, I lived in New York for a little bit. Mm-hmm. I was trading futures, so I saw the whole finance side, the whole market side. And then I took a job in California in San Diego working for a cannabis startup. So it was much more of a a
So you went
startup.
from Wall Street to a cannabis startup.
Yeah, exactly. And it was much more of like product design, regulation, creativity, which is what I'm more interested in, as well as the commodity side.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that whole, I'm like 20, 21, 22.
Okay, so Wall Street was about, so you graduated college to get that job?
Yep.
Okay, so you
Yep.
graduated pretty early then?
I
around-
graduated in 4 years, but one of those years was spent in Costa Rica.
Okay.
I went to abroad down there,
Nice.
and so when I was living in Costa, I was studying coffee export.
Mhm.
So I spent a lot of the times like in the coffee fields on the farms. I would go down to Panama and do the same thing, and I would always like go back to this like one little off the grid farm, which was like more or less like a hippie commune, sort of. It was an out there place.
How did you find it? Just a hike one day? Or?
No, so I found it really kind of online doing research when I was in high school. And so I was like a senior in high school, and I had actually watched the movie Apocalypse Now about the Vietnam War.
Gotcha.
And I really got into like trying to get into like the Heart of Darkness, which is what that movie is based on, is the book called The Heart of Darkness. And so I really was like yearning for that type of like unfound scenery.
Yeah, it's like that was the life experience you wanted, and you knew, like,
Sort of.
deep down. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I was really craving exploration,
Mm-hmm.
and probably were like related a little bit to like the war side of that movie because of probably the frustration
Mhm.
that I was feeling. And so sometimes like you just gotta get gnarly with it, you know what I mean? Like you gotta let it go. You gotta let the dogs out. You gotta like let some of that energy manifest itself into something good.
Yeah, 100%, dude. Just like transmuting it into the
Exactly.
the good instead of just being stuck dwelling. A lot of people put
Frustrated.
the energy into being frustrated, right?
Exactly.
Like, and they put it on other people to like get them out of it.
Mhm.
You have this never-ending cycle. But I think it's important before we move on, that period of graduating college, having these, I'm sure you already had these sensations, like these urges. Like, how did you come to, I'm still gonna take this job, at least for the time being?
The reason why I took the job in New York, number one, I loved what I was doing. So I was trading coffee futures, raw physical goods.
Hell yeah.
So it's something I was really passionate about. And the end of that was I was working to move to Brazil.
Okay.
So I really wanted to go, and I wanted to live in a foreign country doing the export side of things. And so I had a really nice life teed up for me,
Nice.
working with a really, really cool company and doing something that I really loved, and then had an opportunity to go live in a foreign country. I was taking Portuguese, like it was all ready to go. But like once again, there was just something inside of me that was just like yearning and urging, and like it was one of those things where it was like I thought I was gonna almost like regret it if I didn't do it.
Mhm.
And so I just can't live that way.
And you were right at that, who was I listening to? Jimmy Carr, the comedian, actually called it like the quarter life age, where you have the energy and the pieces have put themselves together, and you trust your life experience up to that point, and you either take the leap right there around 25, 26 area, 23 even, or you suffer for the next 4 to 5 years, and then you try to fix it all come 30. And you've been dependent on this other life for
Right.
so
And I
so
think
long.
for me, it was even before all that. Like for me, it was more of like my late teens. You know,
Cool.
it was like just like I was 21 when I was like, I'm out of New York. Took this job in California working in weed. You know what I mean?
Ballsy, dude.
And then it was like weed
yeah.
industry is like so crazy and disorganized and fraudulent. And so that's when I was like, I'm out of here. And to be honest, I was living at a state park on the side of the highway. And
Is that your car?
yeah, in a hammock out in like Encinitas.
Okay.
Had a surfboard, surfed every day for like 45 days, and then one of my buddies, who took him a little bit longer to get out of college, needed a life change as well. You know, had fallen into like a trap of alcohol and bad food and stuff, and I was like, yo, dude, I'm buying a one-way ticket to Panama. Like, are you in? He's like, yeah. And so he actually moved down there with me.
Hell yeah.
And stayed for a part of the time, had his own life transformation, think he lost like 30 pounds.
Fuck yeah.
And started climbing, became just an incredible climber. And I think both of us have really benefited from that like leap of faith.
Yeah, 100%. How long? So 70 days, you guys.
So that's actually COVID.
Okay, so that was another trip you took after. How long was this first experience? And
it was like 2 years.
2 years you guys were down there. Okay,
Yeah,
and
so
what are you doing? Because a lot of people, they're gonna hear this, they're gonna be like, okay, you had money saved up, at least I would assume on your end, to the most part.
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, I know you guys were like literally living off the land.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. So like there was no working period for that 2 years, or were you starting to?
Well, you got to remember this is like a lot of like gray area.
This is where it gets gray. Okay, I got you.
Not really, but yeah. So like I had been working a job in New York that like I was barely breaking even.
Okay,
you know,
gotcha.
making $50,000 living in New York City.
It's not.
It's hard to save money. Right?
Yeah.
So like took another job and was getting paid a lot more, but then within like 6 months, quit. And so I had maybe like a couple $1,000 saved up.
Okay.
Moved down to Panama, but plane ticket's gonna eat a sixth
chunk
of
of
that,
that.
or
Yeah.
whatever. But once I was on the farm, everything was like kind of money didn't have a lot of purpose, and so I started to find ways to make enough money to like just kind of survive. If I could make $100 a week, that would be sweet.
Yeah.
So I started, one thing I've always known how to do since I was like 14 is roast coffee. And so I'm very familiar with the coffee world. So I went up into the mountains in Boquete in Panama and bought a bag of green coffee and started roasting it over a fire on this farm. And so like my first business when I moved to Panama, which is actually really what happened. Like I moved to Panama and I didn't know what to do, didn't really know how to make money. And so I started to get creative at it was like a condensed version of capitalism. It was off the grid capitalism, you know what I mean? And so, that's how I was educated. And so started roasting coffee, started selling that, and then eventually that kind of bled over into rum when I started running this rum still.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, take me there, because the one comment I do want to make about that is just like the amount of like so many people, especially now coming up, they're so desperate for connection. And this journey you just took us through for the last 10 minutes is such a solo, trust your instincts, go type of journey. So before we move on, do you have any advice for how people can get there? Is it a matter of just doing the small things that feel risky and stacking them? Like, do you have any kind of advice you can go that way?
I think especially if you're like a little bit younger, like you have so much opportunity to try new things, and that's sort of what this period that you go through is kind of all about. And so like I'm always in favor of like going for it, failing fast, and then pivoting from there. And so I think for me it was that instance of, if I do this for the rest of my life, I'm going to regret it. And that was all I needed to know. And so if it was my advice to someone else, it's like, if you're feeling it, if it's eating at you, if it's yearning, like if it's calling for you, there's a reason why. Whether you know it or not, or if you ever figure it out, you don't know, but you got to follow it. Like you got to chase the rabbit down the rabbit hole and go into Alice in Wonderland to, figure out what life's about, because you never know. Like even this past month, I had no idea what was going to happen, but I've just been chasing the rabbit, and now I'm here.
I love it, dude. My favorite artist is Mike, formerly Mike Stud, but he's got a podcast and it's called You Never Know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's him and his boy that's been there since day one. Now it took him 10 years, but he finally made it, and he talks about the reason he made it is because he transitioned into trusting him and blocking everything else out.
Yeah.
It was like, it's cool.
Yeah, and that's another good point of like thing that's probably worth mentioning as far as advice goes is like eliminate things that don't serve you, eliminate things that aren't on the quest. I like to go for a general direction, but not really a destination. That way I don't get too fixated on something that might not really be that important, because at the end of the day, like it's a marathon. You're always going to be going for it. You're always going to be doing something, or you're going to die. Yeah. And so it's like really, it sounds kind of cliche and cheesy, but it is really important to like appreciate the journey. And so if you don't build too much like expectation, I found it's much more pleasant, because when good stuff does happen, you become so grateful because it's like, holy cow, I cannot believe that just happened. Like I feel so like overwhelmed with gratitude.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And another thing I was listening to with Jimmy Carter today was he was talking about that. He's like, we always have moments where like we wish we could like go back to them because we didn't expect them. But like our birthdays and like other things that we know are gonna happen, like they never live up to the expectation.
Yeah.
And it's such a good catalyst for like just going about your day. I mean, like the odds that we're all even here, and this is what's helped me buy into this aspect, even at just like 23 years old, is like so like it's one in so many trillions. Like, so if you think you're not here to do what you want when you want and bring value to this world that gave you this whole physical life, like. You're tripping.
Yeah, right,
you have
exactly.
to, and you at least get. And you know the thing I always preach is like, think like that for a year, or start thinking like that for 90 days, then think like that for 6 months, and build the reps of just repeating those thoughts in your head. Because otherwise, a lot of people just haven't tried to think like that.
Mm-hmm.
They've just accepted things as they are and then move on.
Yeah.
But now I want to dive into the rum business because obviously this is the main focus now. This has been for about the last 4 years.
That's right.
To my understanding. So. I guess where do we start with when this thing became legit? When did you know, okay, this is a legit business and I'm gonna.
Yeah. So I was roasting coffee, and then there was a guy actually in Montana who brought this rum still down to this farm I was living on, and pretty much just like kind of left it there. And so no one was really using it. I started using the rum still, started making rum, started selling rum, started really bootlegging rum.
How'd you learn to do it?
A lot of Reddit.
Okay,
Believe it or
gotcha.
not.
So you had your cracked iPhone, to my understanding, or
that wasn't even there. So,
Okay.
So there was one guy there who had run the still before, and he was leaving. And he had been running it for a little bit, and so he was going to New Zealand, and he kind of gave me a crash course one day.
Cool.
And so I knew sort of the principles. It's not rocket science. It's really like anyone can do it. It's really pretty easy. Just a combination of sugar, water, yeast, fermentation, boil that, out comes moonshine rum, right? And then, what you do when it comes out, it makes it good or bad.
Gotcha.
A little bit, and
Cool.
fermentation as well, but like to get just booze, which all I cared about was getting drunk at the time. Let's make that completely clear.
Yeah, you're
I was
drinking
not,
for free.
Yeah, I was not trying to sell anything, because you got to remember, we got no electricity, no internet, so that also meant no refrigeration, which means no cold beer. So I was literally like, I'm gonna make this rum still work. And then it came out, and I was like, whoa, this stuff's so strong. And so, yeah, there was a good amount of time when I was quite literally like abusing ethyl alcohol in the woods by myself at like
Drunk off your own supply.
yeah, at any point in the day, like 7 a.m. And I mean like 90% ABV. So it's not like drinking anymore. It's like closer to doing drugs.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and then we'd share it with people, and people would be like, okay, I want to take a bottle home. So I was like, all right, $20 or something.
Fuck yeah.
And then started to collect a lot of cash, and so pretty soon I was trying to sell 20 bottles a day for $20 a bottle, like $400 a day.
How long was it taking you to make a bottle, would you say?
I would run the still probably like once a week, twice a week, and it was a 125-gallon pot and column still. So it would yield probably like 12 gallons of like 80% ABV.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on the yield. But then you would cut that down, right? So that's like 24 gallons worth of 40% ABV, which is like usual consumption. Mm-hmm. And then you would go from there. But I started to collect like a lot of cash, and so for being a like young man out in the middle of the woods, I had a shoebox full of cash. I was like drug dealer rich. I was like, whoa, man, like I've got so much cash. Like started dating a girl. I was like, let's go sailing, we went in the Caribbean and spent like 2 weeks on a sailboat and cruised around, and just all in cash and things like that. But like just like I had the urge to like create and do something different and get out into the heart of darkness, so to speak. When I was down there, I also like my ambition really got the best of me, and I was like, okay, because what I was doing down there was working. And I was like, my coffee business, like on a very, very, very small scale, booming. My rum business.
Yeah, so you're still doing the coffee and then added the rum.
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. So I was running like a little bitty.
And were your coffee customers also rum customers?
Yes,
Fine.
and because I had so much cash and there was no ATM within like an hour's drive, I became a bank. And
That's awesome.
and I could use the byproducts, the methanol that came off the still, combine it with a little cooking oil, and made biodiesel. So, by the end of my time there, I was doing all things theoretically that were necessities.
Yeah.
Coffee, like caffeine, addictive. Alcohol, ethyl alcohol, addictive. Cash, banking, It's like,
you're
who controls the world? The bankers, right?
Yeah, right. You basically...
The money, so I controlled the money supply.
Yeah, you became the president of Panama. Your own.
No. No, you gotta remember I am
Yeah.
like Panama as a country is
Right.
super developed and everything like that.
Yeah.
I'm in
King of the village.
The boonies.
Yeah, you're king of the village. Put it that way.
The hippie,
Yeah.
like commune type of
Right.
situation. But
Talk about street cred.
no, not even. But just coffee, caffeine, alcohol, money supply. So like I would, if somebody needed, and it became really weird, and I was like, this is how those really rich guys do this, huh? Because people would come to me and they would not have no cash and be like, sorry, I only take cash. And they're like, well, if I go get internet and I like PayPal you $20, can you give me some cash? And I was like, yes, but I'm gonna charge you 20% of whatever the amount is. And so there I could that's the way I could like launder my money, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what it was. And I was making 20% on it. And they were using the cash that I would give them to buy coffee and rum. And so I was like,
Went right back to
whoa,
the
this is crazy. That was not my intention, but I was like, okay, this is what, like the history of wealth and capitalism and like world domination.
Oh my god, dude, this is
looks like.
evolution.
Exactly.
You just got to experience
Yeah.
in a small period of time in a niche market, but like that's why we're doing what we're doing today. Anyway, we saw a bunch of other people fucking figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was like what Rockefeller or Rothschild or like whatever these big names, I'm
Yeah.
sure, in like the Industrial Revolution realized, like if you can control things, if you can control a market, then you can dictate price, you can dictate supply, you can dictate anything, and you become very dependent. And so if I ever needed anything, like I love Snickers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And probably like every other day a truck would go out and go to like the closest town, which is like over a couple of rivers and through a dirt road and crazy mountain switchbacks, and you get to the one small town and they had refrigeration. And so like I would get a Snickers like every other day, and it was like expected. It was like okay, yeah, it was you assume a position and
Hell yeah.
you gain respect. And so really the ambition of all of that and the learnings of all of that was like, all right, I'm gonna do that. I want to do this on a real scale.
Yeah.
Like whether it gets to that point of what it was on the small scale, I don't know, TBD.
Yeah.
But that's what I was like going for.
Yeah, you had proof of concept and rolled right into it. Now, what's step one? Like, you had to get out of Panama, so like...
Yeah, so when I was working for the weed company, I just bought a car.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a 4Runner,
Mm-hmm.
and I left it in California. And so I flew back to California. I drove the like Highway 1, and I actually, weirdly enough, started working on a piece of land in Big Sur
Okay.
for like a month,
Gotcha.
like homesteading sort of.
Gotcha.
And that's really when I was in Big Sur, when I was like, okay, like I'm done like screwing off, like I'm gonna go get legit. So I drove across the country back to Alabama, where I'm from, got a job as a bartender. And I spent all day on Google, and I mean that's how I started the company. Like I think people underestimate how in today's age, I mean look at y'all, you know what I mean, like you can do a lot on the internet.
Yeah, especially with AI now. I mean, you're talking about going on Google.
Yeah, I didn't have that back 4 years ago.
Hit
5 years ago.
GPT-3 and like...
Create me a business model.
Yeah, we're good to go. Get it ready to pitch to Y Combinator and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's even stuff, you can do AI pitch decks now.
Yep.
So like I saw you had like that big presentation, like
Mm-hmm.
you type it in. 30 seconds later.
Yeah.
Here's your format. You're 80% of the way there.
Yeah, you make a couple edits and you're
Dude,
good to
I'm
go.
building a business consulting boomers on. I'm just the AI manager, dude. I know these systems create business results, and they trust me to do that, and they see it, and they're happy. And it's like, dude, this is the power. Like, I'm getting paid for my time. It's doing all the work.
Well, you'll have to trade me some of your time and teach me how to do that, because
Yeah, 100%.
Campesino could use it.
100%, dude.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and it's just incredible. I've got buddies firing their whole teams, and they're doing everything. I don't recommend totally that, but yeah, 100%. Obviously, we're on a little bit of time crunch, but I love that part of it. And now on the business end, there's people there. Like I said, this audience is from beginners to people, 35, 40, getting ready to start new ventures. Now, people getting ready to go, and based on this experience you've had going into and now growing such a great company, people getting into the space, like, what do you wish you knew back then, I guess, that you know now that would have saved you some?
Man, you'll have to ask me that in like 10 years.
10 years, so
I'm
still learning it.
so
Love it.
much. I mean,
Yeah.
the alcohol industry is super like deep. A lot of people have
Yeah.
been in it for generations.
Can you talk to me about your priorities at this phase in the game, as far as what you think moves the needle forward?
Growth within the state of Florida,
Okay,
huge priority for us.
gotcha.
And focusing on other markets like Nashville, Tennessee.
Cool.
And so like really embedding into people's like daily lives, and really our whole goal was to change the dynamic of rum from being something that was like Captain Morgan and Bacardi and Coke and things like that to really bringing a premiumization to the category, to showing a lot of rum has a lot of additives in it, and most people don't even realize that. Like black rum isn't very naturally occurring, a lot of times it's coloring or like dosage or something like that. And so what we're trying to bring is more of education to the consumer to show them that rum can be a very quality made spirit when they choose adequately. And there's not like a ton of super mainstream choices that are additive free that do promote transparency and education, and we want to do that with rum. We've seen it in bourbon, we've seen it in tequila, we've seen it in vodka, but there hasn't been a rum brand to come along, at least that I feel, or we feel, that has really changed the game, and that's the whole goal of the company.
Love that, dude. And I think you're hitting on a great point, because I think the huge theme I'm seeing is people are starting to realize they can live a very much longer time than they used to be able to, and 90% of it, like you hit on earlier, is like elimination, like just like in your social circle. It's like with your health too, like these are the types of things. You can have a drink, but you don't need to have the drink that's going to put all these things in your body that it's not used to.
Correct.
Like there's a reason if you go to other countries and they don't sell what we sell here, because it would kill population. Like literally they're saying, and you'd think it would be common sense, right? We want everyone to live forever because we'll continue to make money off them, right? Like, but for some reason that doesn't apply. And I'm glad to see brands like this and other things that I'm investing in, putting my time into. Like my drink today's got like sea moss, creatine, and like lemon juice in it, just to make sure, like, and it's all about that. It's like, why would I not contribute towards that? So, no, that's awesome, man. And now, what do you think are you're learning right now? What are like your biggest challenges, you'd say?
Capital.
Capital.
Like the booze business is an expensive business to play in.
Mm-hmm.
Growing it, with that comes massive reward, so it's just like what you're asking about, like when is the opportunity to risk it type of thing, and if it's calling for you, go for it. But don't think it's not going to come with hardships, troubles, and adversity, and that's why enjoying the journey is so important, because sometimes you get smacked in the face with something, you got to be like, oh dang, tip your hat to life and grow from it. And so like for us, it's competing against like a brand like Bacardi, someone we're going after.
Yeah.
That's a multi-billion-dollar company. They can walk into a nightclub in Miami and say, take this. Don't even look at it. Take it. Make sure Bacardi's everywhere. We cannot do that. I don't have $50,000 to give to some. Yeah. Right. I don't have like a marketing expense that I can give to some brand to make it good. I don't have like a ton of, I don't really have employees. It's just me out here. So what we're trying to do is build a team and build a movement and build a mainstream, to bring this change within Rum. And so it comes back to getting fully funded. Really, that's kind of like our next step. And so within spirits, there's also like almost like the private equity side, the investment banking side. So I'm learning a lot about stuff that if I ever was to do this again, now I'm going to have all of this knowledge because I figured it out. You know what I mean? It's just like starting a company. Back when I was starting the company on Google, I had to navigate like the TTB, and I started a company in Alabama, like the Alabama ABC control state boards. I didn't know anything like that. Like I was not like the greatest student ever by any means. But it just goes to show you, it's like you can figure it out. Like, if you just eat it and just figure it out, like it's not that hard.
And every successful person you talk to did that. Like I've never met somebody that comes on the show that's seen any level of like, I call it like the success that you're confident like you can repeat again, and it comes from literally ground zero, nothing. Sometimes it comes from thinking you had it and then losing it.
Yeah,
I've been there. Like I tell people like, within like the last 15 months, scaled a company to 10 grand, lost it all the next month. Yeah. It's like, talk about slap in the face. Yeah. But it was the proof that I could do it again.
For sure.
And you just,
now
you keep going.
Yeah,
and you're just like, nope, this is the game. Everybody else has done it. It's probably going to happen 10 more times, but that's totally is what it is. Hope not. With the new tools coming out, we can avoid some of those mistakes and roll from there. But no, man, that's awesome. I think I did want to dive into the, like obviously your hobby that I find so interesting because your page is just like awesome with the wingsuits and stuff. But we'll have to say that for another time. So we'll have to. But I thought it was important. Glad what you've got building here is awesome. And
Thank you.
I'll be following along for the ride. So.
Thank you.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Remember to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this.